Hi, we have Alan Hunter here today from NRN, and Alan will all explain what NRN has to offer, and it's obviously in the solar space. But Alan, before we always start, we have one golden rule. Just to get the vibe going in the room, etc., could you please touch my ball?
Yes, of course. There we go.
So did you see how it kind of was flickering a little
No,
bit?
it didn't flicker.
No, try again.
All
I
right.
want to see if I can.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
there
yeah,
we
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. See, so that gets the vibe going.
Special ball.
Yep. Can you explain what NRN is all about?
All started from a belief of not depending on consumers to buy rooftop solar to be able to get access to cheaper bills or make the transition to renewable. So really what we're trying to achieve is fundamentally enabling people to access rooftop solar and battery, but without paying any cost or finance. How we've been going for the last 4 years trying to build out this product. It's a very strong belief in or vision to how we can achieve this. We believe that everyone should have equal access, regardless if you've got the wealth to buy solar for your home or you don't have the wealth if you're renting a home. We now have designed a solution that everyone can have equal access to rooftop solar and battery through what we've got at NRN.
That's always been an issue with solar, hasn't it? That, for example, people in a rental position can't really often get a benefit because very few landlords will buy out of the goodness of their heart a solar system to then give the benefit to the tenant.
Yeah, correct.
So, can you explain to me really how NRN works?
Exactly the same as energy, how it worked back when it first was created. We didn't have to buy a power station to power our home. It's the same concept. The power station that's put on your home, the rooftop solar, and a battery system is purchased by the energy sector. We're part of the energy sector. These costs are covered by the energy retailers, and they're designing plans that include solar and battery. So how does it work for a consumer? Very similar to your phone plan. You might have a phone that your phone plan includes a phone. It didn't cost you anything for the phone plan. Didn't cost you anything for the phone, but you just pay a monthly fee for your phone plan. We now have energy retailers in Australia that have designed energy plans, but include these generation assets like rooftop solar and battery to put on your home. So we're just kind of taking it back to the principles of what the energy sector was built around. It's built around a community of. It's not one person has to buy a generation asset for themselves. It's about the energy industry supplying it and then using that asset across the community.
So you're saying I got a house,
Yeah.
and the house has a roof.
Yep.
And then I put a solar system on the back, but I'm not paying for it.
No.
NRN is helping me to facilitate that.
Yeah.
Correct so far?
Correct so far. And maybe I'll walk through that process. So you've got a house, you've got a roof, and you want electricity to turn your lights on. You've got two methods today with our solution. One, you're going to go and join an energy retailer, and they'll give you access to the energy that they buy from the grid.
At a high price.
At a higher price, for sure. Or the other way is you just sign up to this new alternative energy plan that just includes rooftop solar and battery fully installed in your home, and it costs you nothing. There was no financing involved. There was no trickery with costs and ups and downs and rebates. There's nothing.
Then I pay for the electricity.
You pay for the electricity.
And then I pay more so that I own the solar, do I?
Yeah, so not
Or do
really.
I pay less?
Yeah, you pay less. So the electricity you're buying will come from your roof, and it will also come from the grid. So the traditional grid. So you got a blend. The retailer will sell you that in different ways. There's different plans that are available. But I guess the other benefit of that, you just called it out about owning. There's every month there is a value of your bill that will go towards the value of that system. So you can buy it any time if you really wanted to own these assets or these systems. We're just questioning, what is the big benefit of spending tens of thousands of dollars up front to pay for your energy bills up front? Like if AGL phoned me today and asked me to pay $20,000 in advance for my energy costs, and I'll get given green energy. I don't know if I'd take up that deal, but that's what the reality is happening today. I know full well solar and battery doesn't have a very strong residual value, meaning that there's not a secondary market of you taking it off your roof and sell it in the public space. Therefore, the value of that system is actually $0 from day dot when you do buy them.
You put a system on my roof.
Yep.
You then use the electricity that my solar generates.
Yep.
but instead of, because I never paid for the solar system,
Yeah.
it now, I still have to pay for the electricity,
Yeah.
but the rate is lower than what I would normally get from the energy retailer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And because it has a battery, I can also benefit of the solar during the day, so I can still pull out cheaper electricity at night as well.
That's correct. Yep, exactly that.
Okay. So really simply, somebody's put a solar system on my roof.
Yep.
I don't pay for it, but then the electricity out of the solar I can generate and purchase.
Yep.
And I pay less than what the one comes out of the power point.
That's right.
And what's the difference per annum, let's say, on a normal family household? What do I save by basically making you and allowing you to put a solar system on my roof? What's the benefit for me?
Look, right now our average customers are saving between $750 to $800 a year by having this benefit. Let's refer back to the terminology return on investment. This is an infinite return on investment because there was no investment required. So there is money in your pocket from day one. Now, we're only getting going. And the great thing with the NRN business model is as the network grows, so more and more homes join NRN, these rates can actually get cheaper because they're working together. And we'll talk a little bit about how that works later. But we believe in the next 18 months, we're able to help consumers save between $1,200 to $1,500 a year by joining NRN, having a solar battery system on their home at no cost. And this will actually challenge the same amount of savings that you get from buying a solar system on your own today. And that we've got a very clear roadmap to how we can achieve that.
So you're saying right now with the energy retail plans that you've negotiated, the savings is around the $800 mark.
That's correct.
For kind of the average consumer.
Yep.
If I'm a large consumer of electricity, then the savings would be higher, would they?
Yeah, like we have customers reaching nearly $2,000 a year of savings from what they were paying before. And that's just, they're a very high energy user. The cost of energy has gone up by 25% the last few months. So yeah, I think there's a lot of other factors that are showing the values of what we're providing.
Now, are there any other services and companies that do similar work to NRN?
For those in the industry, very popular terminology could be viewed as a power purchase agreement. This isn't a power purchase agreement. This is very, very different. There are large CNI or commercial customers that have solar on their roofs. It doesn't cost them anything and they buy the energy directly from the roof. That's called a PPA, a power purchase agreement, and you buy energy for an agreed 10-year period at a fixed price. This is very, very different. This really enables the energy retailer to create these plans. Now, these plans can change over time. And what we're now doing is working with energy retailers to make sure that these plans are more and more attractive. But the big important factor for us is the customers having a choice. We don't believe that one customer should be tied legally to an energy retailer. It's the big stick versus the carrot. We want to see energy retailers providing a carrot to incentivize customers to stay with them. And really that's why we're going down that route. So when we think about other products that are in market, there are other financing solutions, buy now, pay later solutions. There are other retailers looking at how they do offer this, but yeah, look, it's all now moving in a new direction, and hopefully, I think we're not the only ones out there. We're paving a way for others as well, but we need to challenge the norm of just selling more solar systems is the way forward for the transition to renewable.
I hear that you're giving me cheaper electricity bills. In a cost of living crisis, sounds like a bit too good to be true. How do you do it?
Look, pretty much we work with energy retailers to build energy plans that will be a cheaper cost of energy for you. So energy prices have increased by 25%. We put and that's all energy from the grid. We put a solar and battery system on your home. There's no cost, there's no financing, nothing like that for yourself. But essentially that energy retailer is going to sell you the energy from that's being generated in your house. We've seen our average customers save between $800 to $850 a year right now. And we're expecting that to increase by another 20-30% over the next 12 months. It's so easy. Like it's available for owners, for renters, for landlords, for social homes, government housing. It's really removing the cost barriers that we've had there for years. And we think it's a bit of a game changer.
I mean, tenants in the past always had really a problem accessing solar.
Yeah.
So your system, you put it on the roof, and then that electricity that's obviously in bracket for free,
Yeah.
you're still charging something for it, but it's lower than the energy retail price. And that difference is the saving for the end customer. So I'm just using a sample. I don't know if these are your prices, but let's say if I can buy electricity for 45 cents in the middle of the day,
Yep.
or towards the later part of the afternoon when it's a
Yep.
bit more expensive, and then I use that one coming out of your system,
Yep.
and that might be only 25 cents, is it? And
Correct.
so that 20 cents difference,
Is your savings.
right.
Yeah,
And I
correct.
can get that because I've got a battery, I can get that at night as well.
That's correct. Yeah, exactly. And that's all through our energy retailer partners. So you don't join, you're not signing up to NRN, and NRN isn't giving you a bill. It's well recognized energy retailers in the market that see this as a new way of decarbonizing their portfolio and putting more renewables in the grid.
Right. So, I mean, normally energy retailers, we think, well, they're trying to make maximum profit out of us.
Yeah.
So are they suddenly become socially conscious, or does it make a lot of business sense for them?
And look, it does make business sense for them. I think we're at a very complex stage in our grid. We have a lot of different fuel mixes with renewable and fossil fuels. And as we go through this transition over the next decade, it's getting more and more expensive for them from the grid. So this alternative solution, whereby providing solar and battery on your home for free or no cost, and then just charging you for the energy that you use from it, is a really good way for retailers to make this work financially for them as well, because we all have to win.
I mean, I understand that with EVs coming, etc., the need of the grid to deliver more electricity is really enormous. And therefore also the need for the infrastructure to be built out is therefore enormous. And that will add more cost to electricity bills going forward. If we suddenly have 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 NRN systems up there with batteries backing the grid, does your system also make the grid more stable?
Definitely. So we call this a virtual power plant. So all of our systems are virtually connected together, and to put it into easy terms, it's looking at the market dynamics. We have a very volatile market, goes ups and downs, and it can be very reactive. And the purpose of a virtual power plant is to be reactive to help the market in certain times.
So
and that's-
if there's a very hot day and everybody turns their aircon off,
Yeah.
on, not off, at that point in time, your 3,000 batteries would be able to send power back into the grid to back the grid. Is that it? And
That's
that means we have to have less infrastructure. Therefore, the overall cost for grid expansion is going to be reduced.
This could be exactly a point. I think there's a lot of smarts that goes behind what a really good virtual power plant is. We could get to the point where we are, through AI, we are forecasting the usage of power that, if we use the example 3,000 homes, let's say 1,000 of them, the computer knew that there wasn't power going to be used in the next hour, so it could prioritize that battery to be discharged and support. So there's a lot of different ways of looking at it, but yeah, I think as we go into the full transition towards renewable, we need to be using AI and optimization algorithms to help us further manage the grid, but also that's why there's a result of cheaper energy.
So what are actually the unique selling points of NRN?
We're changing the way that people was always expected to go and buy their energy upfront. You buy a solar system, could be 7,000, could be a solar and battery for $20,000. You're paying for your energy 8 years in advance or 7 years in advance. Here, the big differentiation is we are bringing you retailers through our network who will offer these plans that just include solar and battery. It's a buzzword of energy as a service, and you save money from day one.
I understand that with cars and things like that nowadays, the more younger generation, they're not like us, the boomers who had the teddy bear and we went and hold it all day. And I want to own my solar system on my roof.
Yeah.
So is that just a whole shift in thinking?
Yeah.
Does it mean I don't have to go up and clean the pigeon poo of my solar panels and stuff like that? I mean, what's it in terms of maintenance? Who does that?
It's exactly that. We beg the question, why do you need to own a solar system? Does it give you a lot of joy, pride, and everything else, like that sense of ownership. So we are challenging that. I think for the boomers, there's definitely that sense of we have to own it, not just having access to it. But in terms of looking after it, that's our responsibility. You know, we pay. There's about a $5,000 maintenance contract that's sat with your local installer to look after that system, and the responsibility here is shared to say, you're going to have cheaper access to cheaper energy because your systems are being looked after and managed well. You don't have to have that stress, responsibility. All you want to do is go home, turn the lights on. It's cheaper power, and it's green. And if we can do that without you spending a penny, I think we've done our job right.
Obviously, if I own the system, then I get the full benefit. I'm not paying for the electricity anymore.
Correct.
But then also, if I take my $18,000 to $20,000 and I invest it somewhere, I get a return on that.
That's right.
So it'd be interesting to see the numbers of taking my 20 grand, investing it, getting the benefits of the cheap electricity to you, and it possibly going to be fairly similar.
No, not really. Let's take this example: a $20,000 solar and battery solution. If we could save a customer right now $800 is the average savings that we're seeing. Those customers would have saved maybe $1,800 to $2,000 if they purchased it themselves. So that delta, let's be concerned. Let's say it's an extra $1,200 difference, but it cost you $20,000 extra. So to get your money back in comparison to what we're offering is nearly 18 years. And I think that's huge. And we are at the very beginning of this journey right now. We see in the next 12 to 18 months, we're getting that savings figure up to $1,300, $1,400, and we'll start competing against how much you could save if you purchased it yourself. And then you've got your maintenance and your cleaning and everything else that comes along with it. I think it's a time where, buying it for yourself and yourself only are the days of a decade ago. The future is a collective of having access to these. So systems.
You're saying I actually potentially get a better deal with NRN?
100%. And you just raised a point there. If you had your $20,000 and put it into an interest-bearing account, and with interest rates rising at the moment, you've got an opportunity loss of what you could earn from that money, and you have access to that money. You have a level of liquidity. There's no liquidity when you buy a solar and battery system.
I mean, the other issue is also that nowadays a lot of people do put the solar and battery purchase onto their mortgage.
Yeah.
But the mortgage rates are around the 7% now.
Yeah, correct.
So if it's a 6% return that I worked out before on my $20,000 to get me $1,200, you're actually making a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think the standard payback period, let's call it that, for a solar and battery system today is 8 to 9 years, and maybe 7 in certain if you get some cheaper systems. But let's say 8 to 9. If you now add our savings there, and we talk about that delta from 800 to say that 2,000, so $1,200 a delta. It's getting to 16 to 18 year payback when you're comparing it to what you could have with no cost. So I think that's where the big difference is, and we're only going to make that gap smaller and smaller over the years to come.
But if I'm a solar sales guy, I will try and tell you that it'll pay itself back in 5 years, and I hope you don't do the math yourself.
There's ethics within this game, and I think energy is a very confusing industry. We're all consumers of energy. We all pay for it, but we know so little, and I think it's about trusting the expert to educate us in the right way. But if we remove those costs, then we don't have dodgy salespeople trying to get a buck very quickly, because there's no cost to it.
Nowadays, we've got a cost of living crisis. And at the moment, you say, look, you got a roof, talk your landlord into it. This is one of the easiest way, at least, to get $800 to $1,000 off your living expenses per year. And for some people, that's quite a bit of money.
It's a lot of money.
Now, but naturally, everybody's gone a bit cynical nowadays. I mean, there's a scam on my phone popping up every day.
Yeah.
Do you sometimes get asked, is this too good to be true?
Every day. And
do you dress up as Santa Claus and try to sell them as a present or so?
Yeah.
I mean, what's your answer?
Yeah, look, our answer is we work with partners. We're a partnership business. We have energy retailers that build the products. We then have solar retailers. Solar retailers play a huge role in this transition towards renewable. They work locally. So like for it's really important for us that it's your local solar installer up the road, John, who's helped all your neighbors get renewables. We're going to educate John from that solar retailer and give them the tools and visibility over these savings, because it is around trust. And I know what we've built. I know what we've seen the numbers, and genuinely, people are saving money. We have great feedback coming back to us, and it's how do we overcome the trust factor is the challenge ahead of us.
From all the things I've seen in solar, and I've been in the industry for 20 years,
Yeah.
it's very seldom that I don't pay anything up front.
Yep.
I get a benefit immediately.
Yep.
I don't have to actually worry about cleaning and maintaining. And if it doesn't work, that's your problem, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah.
What happens then with the 18 cents baht or the 20 cents or the 22? If my system is down,
Yep.
I can't get the cheap electricity out of it anymore.
Yeah.
What happens there?
No, look, subject to the type of energy plan that the retailer will offer you. But we actually don't get paid if a system isn't working. And we get paid by the energy retailer, by the energy sector. They pay us for the access towards this rooftop solar and battery. If it's not working, we don't get paid. So we are on the hook to make sure that these systems are working. I can assure you, every day at 8:30 a.m., we all get an email around the performance of all of our sites. So we internally as a team, we are always on top to make sure these systems are working. That's our job. And that, as a consumer, as you know, you've got lots of things to do in your life. That's not your job to make sure these systems are working. That's ours. So I guess that's the assurity that we do have in place. And then every retailer will have a different plan structure to either remunerate or something back to an end user if there is an issue. But look, we have a turnaround time within of 10 business days to get that site up and running, fixed, and going again. We've heard loads of horror stories over the years, and I think this is a big problem that we're solving.
What horror stories of people having purchased solar and then the company gone bust and they can't get their warranty and things like that?
This is it.
So those issues we won't have with you?
No. So we, working with solar retailers in our space, they all have an obligation to make sure that system is working for a 10-year period. We always forget that they're not getting paid for that. We talk about the race at the bottom in the solar industry, and the smaller that margin is there, the smaller that goes towards their support team who can help these systems get fixed down the line. As NRN, we put nearly a $5,000 maintenance basically contract behind every site that we install that goes back to the solar industry. So we're paying them for doing a job that they're doing anyway today, but it makes sure it's sustainable. They can afford to get the contact centers. They can afford to send people out and fix it. And I think that's something that's really overlooked within our sector. It's just about how do I get the cheapest system on my roof and save as much money? There's a lot more that needs to go behind.
But look, I mean, there's solar systems which can be sold for $2,990.
Right.
And then there are others which claim to do the same and they're $7,000.
Yeah.
And most Australians are gamblers.
Yes.
So they go, $299,
Yeah.
that'll save me $2,000 a year. I got my money back in a year and a quarter.
Yeah.
That's a much better deal than NRN. Is that true?
No. I think, there's the less you pay, the more you spend. I think it's always a saying in the solar world. It's
What you're saying, the $2,990 system will have an issue, at year 2 or 3?
if not before. I've known systems that get installed and aren't even switched on, and you don't know that for the next 6 months until you get your bill, and then you're a bit price shocked. You then try and get around to contacting the person that installed it, and they're not there anymore. So I think there's a
lot of phoenixing going on in the solar industry?
I think it's a very well-known factor within this space. I think there's certain bodies that are doing a lot at the moment to try and clean this space up. I always advise someone if they're going to buy a system to go through the NETCC, the New Energy Tech Consumer Code, who have a list of many solar retailers that are audited and get accredited essentially to buy it. So yes, I think there's it's known in the industry that it's always about the cheapest system is the best. It's for a consumer. It's wrong.
You're saying horror stories in solar?
Yeah.
Give me a sample.
There's times where people would buy a system and it's not even switched on. They might not even have the permission to have a system on their home. Every household has to get permission from the grid. So your local grid must authorize you to have that system. If they don't do the right paperwork, you can't get connected and your system will stay off. We see this a lot, and I would say a lot, like you hear it a lot of this happening. You also hear the instances where half the system has been connected properly and the other half hasn't. meaning that you're generating power, but how much do you know that you should be generating if you've got installed a
I mean,
cell?
the light on the inverter is green.
Yeah, that
Should be
means
okay.
yeah, if a little bit of power is flowing through, but what if one of the strings wasn't even connected? And I think
Then I'll get a big bill again.
there you go, and you don't know until you get that big bill, and I think there's energy is confusing. Solar is confusing. We're trying to make it easy, and there's low risk. Like we take the risk because we know energy. We work within the sector. Why should we rely on consumers to buy energy infrastructure like rooftop solar and give them all the risk to make sure that we're making this transition? This is our big belief.
So if I go to NRN,
Yeah.
I don't spend money up front.
Nope.
I get a lower bill than I would just naturally.
Yep.
Why aren't you overrun with thousands of people, all kind of like the Beatles in the olden days?
Yeah, it's starting. I'll be honest with you. I think now we've passed our what we call our proof of concept stage. We had to demonstrate that a customer's going to save money. So we had a cohort of around 100 customers who tried out these systems. We put it on their roofs, and the results were a lot better than what we expected, which is always a nice thing when you're building out a proof of concept. We're now at the point of working with your local solar retailers to help introduce this product into your local area, and I guess that's what we're going to be doing over the next 12 to 18 months. So I'm sure you're going to, we might be bigger than the Beatles. You never know.
Now, why should solar retailers opt for a partnership with you?
Customers only value a system on the dollar price that they're given. They don't value the service, they don't value the background of that company and everything else. So, why solar retailers are interested in our solution, it eliminates all race to the bottom. Everyone's got a fair playing ground because there's no cost for the customer.
But it's also in your interest to put good gear in so it doesn't break down, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. So we have an approved product list that solar retailers are able to go and purchase. They make their own, they buy in different volumes, different quantities, and they can do that. So they have a price with us. They invoice us. They get paid. They get paid quickly, and I think that's the other aspect is cash flow within the solar industry, solar retail space is so important, especially when we're talking solar battery systems that could have an asset value of $15,000 to $16,000. You want to make sure you're getting that money back in, because if you don't have the right terms with your distributors, you're going to be out of pocket. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars every week until the cash flow starts cycling. So that's a big one. The other main one is recurring revenue. In the solar retailer space, you are chasing the next sale to pay your salaries. And I think that's the hardest thing that every solar retailer business owner goes through. We are putting a $5,000 maintenance contract on every home they install.
Over what period is that?
This is over a 10-year period.
Right.
So it's the same job that they do today, but they just don't get paid for it. And what this does is creates a book, a value of their business. So not only is there money or cash flow coming in, there's actually an enterprise value. If we see in the solar industry a few acquisitions happening here and there at the moment, it's a very hot subject. But the risk the larger solar retailers have is they're carrying a huge book of liabilities. And this could be 20, 30,000 homes that they have to...
Just to explain, it means when you install 20,000 systems, you're now potentially on the hook for some of the warranty calls, because you can't just send them off to the manufacturer. A lot of times you have to get involved, which is valuable time. So if I buy a solar company, then if they install a lot of crap, I could actually down the track be in big trouble because I'm spending all time running around.
Correct.
So how's that going with NRN? You're paying the people for the maintenance work that they haven't even done yet because you're giving them a recurring income, every month?
Yeah, every month. Yeah.
Right,
So, and we see this as a book value too. Like it's there, it lasts for 10 years, and it will just increase their enterprise value if an acquisition is a strategy within that business down the line. And I think this is a game changer for the industry. And I think this is why we've had a really interesting reaction from the solar retailer industry around our product. There was a lot of too good to be true when we first started talking to the industry. But once we were very transparent with the cash flow and who earns what, we started to gain a lot of trust, and we are genuinely getting a lot of interest.
Look, I'm going to ask a tricky question here now, because batteries do sometimes only last 7, 8, 9 years, okay?
Yeah.
If they really hit the crap kicked out of it and they were installed in a hotspot and all that. So let's make it year 8.
Yep.
And I've got a malfunctioning inverter and also the battery seems to be on its last leg.
Yeah.
Who's paying for that replacement?
It's us.
So that's not coming out of the residual from the solar retailer?
No, not at all. We've back to backed everything on our warranties with the manufacturers. We also only charge the energy sector the usable capacity of a battery. So you might have a 16 kilowatt hour battery installed today, but by year 8 there might only be 9 kilowatt hours that's usable because we have a degradation. We've budgeted all that, like it's all within our numbers. So but then again, if it comes with under a certain threshold, it falls into a warranty claim, and I guess that's what we have in place.
Right. Could you give me an example where you have added actually really additional extra value to a solar retailer?
Yeah, definitely. I think conversion rates. So one of our partners were converting at nearly 40% of just a customer receiving a proposal. So that's just saying an estimate. This is how much you'll save, to actually signing up.
So with 10 customers leads, he sells normally 4.
Yep. So
okay.
So I think standard with the industry we see between 15 and 20%. So if we think about a double of that is a huge factor of reducing the cost of acquisition, which I think cost of acquisition is a big metric or a cost point within the solar space. Leads from us. So we work with energy retailers. We have the opportunity to have customers that come through energy retailers and want to have access to this plan. We're providing these straight up to the solar retailers to be able to access this new market. Go on to the next point about new market. Like every solar retailer in Australia today is targeting the 6 million homeowners that we have in Australia. Everyone forgets about the 3.2 million renters that we have available. Everyone doesn't focus on them, but it's such a what I would call a blue ocean that I think we can offer to solar retailers. And just to wrap up that final point, the biggest piece for me is that recurring revenue. It's ironically, we're all about sustainability, but the solar retailer business model is very challenging to be sustainable and to be there tomorrow, because we're always chasing the next sale and there's always a race to the bottom. So I believe what we're offering them is a very clear roadmap to sustainability, because they have recurring revenue and there's no race to the bottom.
Moving on to the energy retailer, which are also the people that send you the bills, your distributors, etc. What's in it for them?
We are so advanced in Australia compared to the rest of the world with this transition towards renewable. Renewable is a variable generation source, right? So if we think about a coal-fired power station, we call this as a baseline, or it's a base generation source, where it's just a flat line of generation. We have a variable factor now with the sun. When it comes out, we get generation and so forth. So the big factor for the energy retailers is our market is so volatile now, and relying on buying from market is too risky. We had 8 energy retailers go bust last year in Australia. We hit very volatile markets last May or June it was. And the majority were exposed to wholesale market and just couldn't make it work. So what's really critical for an energy retailer is having the right hedge. Now, explaining what that is, it's making sure that there is a financial contract behind them that doesn't let them be too exposed to the volatility of the energy market. Now, whilst building a hedge, having these assets available, this rooftop and battery systems that you can control physical power to either be discharge or charge, or however you do it, you can actually what you call start shaping your load. So when a hedge is being built, it always looks at what time you're using power. The flatter the line, the better it is for energy retailers. This is exactly what we can do by providing this solution to energy retailers. Now, maybe I've taken a little bit of a
no. I think I think I got it, because what you're basically saying is, there's the energy generator.
Yep.
He sells the power to the energy retailer who has their book of clients.
Yep.
They have to purchase it at the price that the energy retailer sets. When the energy prices in Europe went up, gas and other competing factors went up, which meant the energy generators had to charge more. Yep. The energy retailers in between now couldn't charge what was coming through the line to the end customers because they had existing contracts.
Correct.
Now, if they would actually have their own creation capacity through the batteries and the solar systems on roofs,
Yep.
at that point in time, they're minimizing their exposure to sudden price fluctuations.
This is correct.
Did I get that?
Yeah, exactly that. Yep.
And also, sometimes we're in an auction system for buying electricity, and on a very hot summer day when everybody turns on the aircon, it could suddenly cost you $13, $14 a kilowatt hour
Yep.
that you then have to sell back to the customer at 40 cents, who still thinks they're paying a lot. But you're losing money by the millions.
This is it.
If you have, for that half an hour to an hour where the prices are sky high, if you got your own little reservoir to send it back down the line,
Yep.
again, you're minimizing risk.
This is it. Yeah. And this is where the world of a virtual power plant is becoming a big thing at the moment. Our learnings is that if we relied on consumers, so mums and dads, us, to buy a solar and battery system, and we then say to them, hey, we want to use your system in our virtual power plant, the mum and dad wants an incentive, right? They want to get paid for being part of that component. But they're also conflicted to what they can do. I'll give you an example where with our systems in September this year, we saw a lot of negative market events in Victoria. So,
which is the energy somebody had to pay to actually keep their power station on.
This is right, correct. So the generation needs to basically pay the market to take the energy, and
which
this
is crazy.
And the way we're experiencing this, we've started in South Australia, and now it's starting to see it in Victoria, New South Wales, and in Queensland, and it's because of the influx of rooftop solar. So, in these instances, the energy retailer actually wants to turn off your export, but if you are
in the middle of an environmental crisis, we're creating solar, and then we say, oh, there's too much.
Yeah.
I mean, those energy retailers, why the hell didn't they build batteries? I mean, they saw the solar train coming for the last 15 years where everybody is asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, it's all about the commercial side too. Everyone, generally you're making financial decisions.
Well, you're trying to be nice to the energy retailers.
Look, it's the energy retailer's job isn't around battery storage or generation systems. We have, there are the larger energy retailers that are what we call generational retailers, and they have a mix of different generation assets, and then they retail.
So that's some of them just sell the electricity, and others generate and sell.
This is correct.
So the large players like, let's say, AGL or Origin,
yes, correct.
They generate and they sell, so they're in the both business. But the smaller ones, let's make it Dodo or something like that.
They'll buy from the market.
They buy just from the market.
Yeah,
so
correct.
Yes.
Yeah, there is definitely a role here for energy retailers, and this is why we believe that we're providing them a really interesting solution, because they know they need to participate. Let's talk about the tier 3 or 2-tier retailers, the ones that are actually trying to make a real big difference here as well. They don't have the balance sheet or the backing to be able to go and buy large, generation systems and batteries and everything else.
Elon Musk would love to sell them a few,
right?
But at 500 million a pop.
This is it, but they're focused on spending their money on futures of energy, on hedges, on making sure that they're protected to provide cheaper pricing from the grid. Now, what we're trying to do is say, well, by installing a solar and battery system on someone's home, you're eliminating nearly 75% of that need for that home from the grid of power is actually generated and stored behind the meter. And we use the term behind the meter because there's a meter that's the grid facing, and everything behind it is where the solar and battery is. So when a retailer starts to assess their portfolio, they can really take 3/4 off the demand from the grid per home that does join NRN, and after a while they'll start seeing a significant amount of benefits. And it's very clear in this dynamic market that a retailer is better off with our solution than it is buying energy traditionally through the different hedging strategies that are available in market today. And that's because the timing is right. Like we're in the middle of an energy crisis right now, and that's why we have increased costs. The cost of the sun hasn't increased on July the 1st this year. It's still the same cost. In fact, the panel prices have become cheaper. It's actually going all in the right direction to make sure that retailers are getting more involved behind the meter with the customers and providing these systems.
So you tell me, I put a solar system on my roof. I don't own it.
Yep.
You own it.
Yep.
That power out of the solar system that's coming out is going to be cheaper to me. So I save $800 to $1,000 a year, and maybe down the track even more. Now, let's say I have an area where there's occasionally blackouts. Does my battery in my solar system also give me blackout protection?
100%.
So I get that as an extra benefit.
You do.
Is it? So I can actually pretend I paid for it. I can brag to the neighbors. I can look like smart. I get a lower bill, and I have blackout protection.
Yep.
All right. Does that mean you kind of locking me in for 10, 15 years in a contract? I can't buy the solar system out. What happens if I sell my house? What are those kind of constraints? I mean, there must be little asterisks and little things that are linked to it.
You can buy the system at any time. We want to make that flexibility.
But
there.
at a realistic price, or you put a 50% margin on it?
Not at all. At the same price you would go and buy a system for in market, that would be that price from day one. And every month it just gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, right? Because we think that's fair. It's been used, so you're gonna pay a cheaper rate for it. We provide that visibility upfront from day one. So when there's an agreement put in front of you, you know at year 5, this is how much the system's going to be worth if I sell my house. And, So
if you do sell the house, you can't really give it to the new...
You can. So this is the other part, is that you can novate that agreement whenever you want. We charge a small $40 admin fee. It's immaterial, really. But we will novate that over to the new owners, or if it's in a landlord situation, it'd be the tenant, to basically say that we are able to look after that system and manage it on your behalf, and you're going to use one of our energy retailer partners. And that's really key, is that we want to get the energy sector to pay for it. So our job and our responsibility is to make sure that we can bring as many energy retailers or utilities to the party as possible to give you as much choice as you want as a consumer.
So let's say after year 5, I want to sell my house.
Yeah.
I now got the option to give the new purchaser, an owner, the option to move into your arrangement, and he gets a lower bill. Or if he says, oh, look, I'm not the guy of paperwork and this and that, I then purchase the system at the value at the time. Given that possibly I sell the house for many hundreds of thousands of dollars, that little relatively small amount wouldn't be that much. Plus, it possibly would add value to the home anyway.
This is it. Yeah, correct. We actually had someone that joined us, got a system with the intent that he's going to sell the house in the next few months. And the whole reason was that it cost them nothing. They wanted to add more value to the home, and they believed that the value of buying that system was going to be smaller than the value added to the property. So they would make money from spending nothing. Very smart, very savvy. But yeah, that's...
They basically got themselves a nice front yard for nothing, meaning the house to any buyer looked now more substantial.
Correct.
Oh, very smart.
Very smart.
So basically, my marketing would go all to people who want to sell their houses. It's a solar system on the roof, looking at $60 million.
Yeah, this is it. And look, I think this also goes to we think about the amount of new builds that are being built every year too. I think this is a great way of developers wanting to sell more homes, or people selling homes, is adding solar and battery and to the home. And I think that does appeal to the new market that's out there.
Now, after 10 years, when the whole thing is kind of getting towards the end of the sign up, and the battery's obviously getting a bit older, do I own the solar system then, or do I have to still pay you out, or what's the story there?
So you got a few options. You can pay it out. There is a what we call residual value, so a small amount of value, and it would be in between $1,000 to $2,000 at the end if you did want to own it. We didn't put it at $0 at the end because we don't actually feel like we should give you something that doesn't work anymore. I think it's quite important to say, no, let's go again. Let's keep saving you like this money every year, and we're going to replace the battery. We're going to replace the inverter. It's great for our solar retailers. They get another piece of work, and I think that's about the sustainable model. And as a consumer, you're just benefiting the same rates that you're paying now. Again, it costs you nothing. You just get upgraded your system, so you could get the bragging rights again, or you add more value to your property. And basically you go again, and that's the whole goal. So the reason we have 10 years in there is it's too scary to give a 20-year contract or an evergreen contract. We need to have a term, but we try and enable as much flexibility as we possibly can to make sure that we're not We're not locking you in. Let's just
But I
say.
mean, a lot of solar systems do have 25-year warranties on
This
the
is it.
panel. So if you
Yeah,
put a new inverter in a new battery, you should be really
should
operating
be
quite well.
correct. Yeah, exactly that.
Okay. Let's say you start me on 20 cents a kilowatt hour instead of my 35 to 40.
Yeah,
And at the second year or so, the energy retailer suddenly decides, oh, this is too good to be true, and they whack me up to 35. Have I got any protection that actually that better rate will stay with me?
yeah. Look, really good question. Look, this is why we don't believe that tying you into one like energy contract is the right way, and we go refer back to a power purchase agreement or anything like that. We think having multiple energy retailers will create a competitive landscape, so you're able then to actually assess that. If your rate's gone up by 35%, let's just say, through our solution, then here's the marketplace. Go and have a look at other retailers and what they're offering that include the solar and battery. So I think that's really key. There are some retailers. We partnered with, our first retailer was Diamond Energy. Diamond Energy have actually locked in their rates. So they've said, as long as you stay with us, one of the rates that you use from your solar and battery, we're going to lock it in for evergreen, which is a really interesting way about this whole carrot, not the stick, of incentivizing a customer to stay with them.
So some of the energy retailers will actually give you a fixed rate for the total period of the contract,
Yeah.
while others might have some flexibility
Yep.
as the market goes up and down.
Correct.
And you will then down the track, there will be a number of energy retailers I can choose from.
Yeah, there is. There's always there will be a number. There's quite a lot that want to participate and join, and we're aiming to have at least 7 energy plans available by this time next year, which is December next year.
Right. Okay. Now, some people actually call solar middle class welfare because what happens is the rebate that everybody gets who buys a solar system adds to the cost of the electricity price because that's how it's been recovered.
That's correct.
But the only benefit that you can get from the rebate is if you own a house. So the poorer people who are in rental situations actually in this part of society subsidize the more rich people when it comes to solar.
Right.
Most people don't really realize that. So if you struggle with your electricity bill, it's only a small amount, but one part of the cost is actually for you purchasing indirectly a solar system for somebody in the rich suburbs.
Correct. It's crazy.
Are you in that same game then, or are you actually in the counter game enabling the more poorer people to access solar? How does it work?
It's making sure it's available for everyone. And just to touch that point, it's around $200 a year of your energy bill is paying towards these rebates that are paying for those who can afford it, right? No, look, for us, it's about democratizing. We really believe that those that are in need should have equal access to rooftop solar and cheaper energy rates. By relying on the energy market is only going to get worse. We experienced a 25% spike. We're going to experience, I believe, at least another 10% next year, and a few more years after. And there's a lot of reasons why. But
I mean, I tell you why. We got the EV. The grid actually is at the moment not fit for purpose.
Correct.
The grid needs huge investment.
Yep.
The solar farms and the wind farms that's going to supply power will be far, far away.
Yep.
The transmission lines have to be built.
Yep.
And what we got right now is also getting older. I hear of people discussing electricity prices going forward, which could be, we think it's expensive at 45 cents,
yeah,
60, 65, 70.
Yep.
At that point in time, your system will really make good sense.
It will. The sun isn't charging us more money. And you're spot on. Like, energy costs will increase. Just want to refer on a point. 50 to 55% of your energy bill is paying for the poles and wires and the networks. We need them. We need the wire that comes to our house to connect us to the grid. But there's with electric vehicles coming into play, there needs to be upgrades to substations and different transformers and the overall infrastructure. So yeah, those costs are going to increase. But just going back to people that can't afford it, the cheapest way of them reducing their bill is by having energy generated directly on their house. If it's the renter, if it's a social, if it's owned by the government, or however, this is a space that we really feel passionate about and that we can help, because there is no cost. Someone that has a $5 million home or someone's home that is $200,000, they should their cost or their access to energy should be equal. Maybe some debate that the $5 million home should pay more cost of energy, but that they can buy a solar system. We really want to help, and that's something that we can support with.
Now, let's say I'm a tenant.
Yeah.
I'm feeling the cost of living pressure.
Yep.
And I hear about NRN. Could I then approach my landlord and introduce him to NRN?
Yeah, definitely. Look,
do you talk to the landlord and explain it all, or how does it work?
We do. It's definitely a little bit challenging, and the reason it's challenging is there's multiple stakeholders within this relationship. But we have had renters come to us and we've engaged with the landlord. As long as the landlord is they recognise there's no cost to them, they recognise that the tenant is more than willing to use the participating energy retailers, then there's no issue. Like, the tenant's going to save money, it's going to increase the value of that landlord's home, and there is no cost for that landlord. So,
but what happens if that tenant moves out? Then the new tenant has to actually move into that contract as a condition, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. So that's where the little bit of complexity comes into it. There are ways, and we see a future where we could eliminate that, and that's something we're working on. And hopefully in the next 3 to 4 years, we won't actually require those novations of contracts. But for the moment, yes.
You need to sign a new contract. But then again, if I'm a tenant and I move into the house, and one of the conditions of the house is that the electricity bill is lower than in the other place, it's probably not that hard to convince you to go ahead with it.
Exactly that.
And I got backup as well.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly that. So yeah, there's a few different ways of doing it. The renter market is definitely a challenging one, but it's a blue ocean because it's challenging, and I think that's what we get excited about. It's like, how do we solve the problems that haven't been solved yet?
No, I mean, solar in the past for renters has not been accessible. If you make it accessible and give benefits to the lower socioeconomic people, I'd say the politicians will beat a drum to your door.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it has to be a collective effort. Everything we do is collective. We have 4 stakeholders that work with us to make sure this works. We have investors who buy the systems. They work very closely with us. With the energy retailers that build the product, with the solar retailers that install it, and with the customers that have the access to cheaper rates. Every participant or every stakeholder has a role to play to make this work. And if we think about the politicians, or how can they help the transition, they can really get involved here about helping all those stakeholders within our supply chain make their benefits even more attractive, which will drive more demand.
It's kind of funny, really, because everybody of the 4 stakeholders you just mentioned is in a win-win-win situation.
Everyone is in a win-win situation.
I actually haven't met many products where there isn't much of a downside.
No.
Which is possibly your biggest problem, because people go,
sounds too good to be true.
That's it.
Yeah, correct.
I'll give you a lower electricity bill. I'm not a door knocker who's promising the world. I'm actually generally putting a real system on your roof.
Yep.
It's of a good quality. Yep. I will maintain it.
Yep. And
you save money.
Correct. But it's because we govern all that, right? We know how much a customer's saving. We know how much a retailer is making from it. We know how much a solar retailer is gaining from it. And we know how much investors are getting. So we have a duty to make sure there is a very stable, fair return for everyone, or a benefit for everyone financially. And that's our responsibility. So we've now hit that point where every stakeholder has a return or a benefit, let's just call it. And it's sufficient. It's good enough. It's great. And I think there are other factors that will improve this over time.
Quick question. I mean, you're saying the customer is benefiting because they get cheaper electricity. The energy retailer is benefiting because they got more security now in the volatile market. The investors who purchased the system in the first place are benefiting because there's a return. But you're really depending on the very volatile Australian electricity market, because what you're really doing is you're charging indirectly for the reduction of that volatility and the more higher level of security. Yep. But if for whatever reason one day that whole flexibility of having to pay big bucks in an auction system for electricity on a hot day, if that suddenly gets eliminated one day, maybe with huge batteries out there, doesn't your model at that point in time not really work anymore?
Not when we consider what the cost of your power is. Going back to my comment previously, the cost of power is a majority of the poles and wires and the networks. There is a
You mean bringing the
there's an
solar
infrastructure.
farm all the way from
Correct.
wherever
Right. So
Bathurst
it's not.
all here,
Yep.
that cost
Correct.
you don't necessarily need if 2/3 of the power is generated locally.
Correct.
Then you actually cutting that middleman out,
Correct.
and that's the saving that you can pass on. Is it?
This is it, and we don't view this as we're trying to cut out the networks. We want to work further with the networks. I think they've got a big job to do in the next decade to make sure we can keep the lights on and there's a good balance within our grid, and that's going to require a significant amount of investment. And that in a way, that's where your energy bill is going right now. You're paying for the investments of the infrastructure, 2/3 of that. So if we think about if the energy market was $0, there is still a benefit here because the cost of the infrastructure of getting energy to your home is actually really expensive, and that's that's part of being in a very big country, and that's something we have to deal with.
Now let's say I'm back wearing my end customer hat,
Yeah.
and I've got 2 10-year-olds. And I'm dreaming about an EV, but I can't afford it yet. But I hear there's a model coming out that's going to be affordable in 2 years' time. I hear Tesla is coming down with a $30,000 car.
Yeah.
And how do you size my system now? Do you size it for my teenage daughters in 4 years' time and the fact that I'm going to have an EV in 4 years?
Yep.
Or are you giving me a small system now and then suddenly I'm not going to have enough?
Yeah, good question. So we think about not having enough. We size it based on today's usage profile of the generation size of the solar system. We are getting to a point the cost of energy during the daytime is very, very, very cheap, meaning that having a very large solar system doesn't actually benefit anyone down the line. Go back to your question, if someone bought an electric car and their load was to increase, or their usage was to increase, we could actually increase the battery size. So we could be charging the batteries from the grid during the daytime whilst the solar's coming in too.
And the electricity is cheap.
When the electricity is cheap, to then benefit the
charging
the
at
charger
night.
at night time. Correct. So we're actually running a pilot right now in South Australia, which is battery only. So this is for homes that can't put solar on, there's too much shade, or don't have a roof. We are trialing the piece of putting a battery on the side of your wall and then be able to charge it from the grid during the daytime because they have so much solar. We speak about negative events and where the retailer can take benefit of this too, and then the customer doesn't have to pay these really expensive peak rates. And I think this is where Australia is getting to, where the cost of energy in the evening is going to be so high that you need to work out to use energy at different times of the day because of the factors that are happening within our grid.
So what you're saying is because there's a lot of solar generated in the middle of the day, our manufacturing has slowed down, we don't have anywhere for it to put, we need more battery capacity. You put a battery on the house, buy the electricity when it's cheap, and then sell it to them back at night, but at a lower price that they would have to pay from the energy retailer.
Spot on. Yeah.
You've been pretty smart about this.
Yeah, we've been.
Is that all you, or is that a whole team?
I've got an amazing team. I think there is so many problems facing us within the energy industry. It needs innovators. It needs problem solvers to look at these in isolation and trial things. And I think we haven't been scared of trialing. We've trialed public EV charging stations. We've trialed just general EV charging, solar and battery, hot water systems. We're trialing a few things here and there, and I think all of these. We call this DER, distributed energy resources, and they all have a role to play in the future of energy. And that's, that's the space that we're working in to really help the energy retailer have a cheaper cost of supply, which means cheaper energy to the customer, resulting in cheaper bills to the end user.
But how would you describe how you influence the evolution of the energy sector?
By the energy sector getting more involved behind the meter. Behind the meter, meaning anything from where your meter is to the grid, anything that happens behind it. The energy retailer today doesn't get involved from what happens behind that meter. They need to in the future. And we are influencing that by giving the tools to the energy retailers to do it. Now, we are in such a energy crisis. We're transitioning to renewable, which is great. It's the right thing to do, but we are going to be troubled by these random peak of demands of energy at different times. If a retailer has no control of that, they won't have a business. They need to do more to be able to see what's happening in their customer's home. And I won't go too. It's not too like in the home and too private. It's purely around managing the rooftop solar, managing the battery, maybe managing your hot water system. Those are probably the most, easy accessible systems that they can access to control and make sure that you have cheaper bills. So yeah, how we want to influence it is giving the tools to the energy retailers. Just on a really important note, we have 21 gigawatts of rooftop solar within our grid. That's a huge amount of generation.
That's just running around. It's
just
not controlled.
Not controlled. No one's managing it, and we talk about the infamous duck curve that's just getting bigger and bigger.
Which means in the middle of the day, we got all this solar. There's no use for it often. That's why the feed-in tariffs are going down.
Yeah.
And it just means we need more batteries.
We need more batteries, and we need to control this generation. It's great we've got the generation. We need to get better at forecasting when the generation's happening. I think there's some incredible companies out there doing that at the moment. A cloud passes over a whole city. All of a sudden, your generation just falls off. So I think there's a lot of work that's happening there. It's about more about how you control it. And controlling, you have to be able to have that. It's a battery. It's the battery is the arbitrage piece. So you can stop the energy in that battery. You can then push it out later on. And I think that's the game changer that's just about to happen. And that's why we hear about virtual power plants and all these other, I guess
terms.
Yeah.
But haven't we let the genie already out of the bottle by installing these 3.5 million solar systems without any reference back to the grid? I mean, solar has really been sitting on the grid, creating problems for it, but haven't really contributed in its ability to be controlled to the future solutions.
Correct.
And the government is still giving the rebate out to make it worse.
I don't think it's a government here that are really, responsible, to be honest. I think we the industry
Hang on. At the bottom part, the government is supplying the rebate. The rebate was the result that we have so many solar systems, but there was never a condition attached to it that you should maybe buy a battery as well or have ability to control the solar system. Correct. So now we've got the electricity being generated at the wrong time of the day. Correct. And the whole thing is in a big mess.
Yep.
Why isn't the government's fault? Come on. They gave the money in the first place.
Yeah. Look, I think it's an overall piece of the targets that we have in Australia, and we have the Clean Energy Regulator that have designed the STCs, the small scale technology certificates, that enabled customers to buy these assets, these rooftop solar cheaper. Battery technology wasn't where it is right now 5 years ago, 3 years ago. So I think there's been a development of technology to catch up, but there is no excuse that right now that has to change. We have the technology. It's there. It's built. It works. We have good policies in place, I believe, of being able to subsidize certain systems. There could be more, sure. But someone has to pay for that. Tax, that's coming out of our tax money, is coming out of our energy bills. As I quoted earlier, $200 of your energy bill is paying for a carbon, for the STC or in the CER. So I think there are frameworks in place. What I disagree fully is that we rely on people to buy it themselves. The energy is not an individual commodity. It is a collective. We didn't build a power station for one home. We built a power station for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of homes. We don't need to look at renewable being about one home in isolation. That's a mistake, I believe, that we did. And I really believe this is why NRN's business model is here today. I think other countries can look at us and go, let's not do what Australia did over the last decade, because they have really, we've got a big problem with our grid.
So are you kind of, as a company, advocating for a green energy solution and for more sustainability, and how you do that?
Yeah, well, this is it's going back to the word collective. Energy retailers need to be advocating furthermore about the transition to renewable. But they've got bigger problems on their plate right now to try and work out how they can provide a cheaper cost of power so they can keep a customer base. So going back to advocating green and energy solutions, like we are going to the energy retailers saying, here is a solution. It's turnkey for you. It's packed up. It's in a nice little box, presented to your customer, and we're going to make sure that it's working for you financially. It's working for everyone. And you know, they're not just becoming an insurance broker. They're actually part of this transition with us.
But most people hate the energy retailer.
Yeah.
So you're trying to make the energy retailer becoming nice again?
Well, they have a job. They have a very important job. If we want to continue, if we want to get electric cars, if we want to go home and turn the lights on, we need an energy retailer. And I don't think we should be working against them. We should be working with them. But collectively, they should be working closer with their customer base. This is why we have a strong belief of it's a carrot approach and not a stick approach. The retailers shouldn't be sending contracts out, locking people in. Not at all. It's incentivizing people to stay with that company because they are doing the right thing. And I think that's something we're advocating for and we are providing for energy retailers.
Right. So how is your business model in some way kind of matching what's emerging in that whole energy sector?
I think it's complementing, and hopefully it should accelerate everything that's happening in the energy sector. We think about the future of energy. The future of energy isn't just I generate power, I put it into the poles and wires, and I turn on the light and I've delivered it. The future of energy is using AI, using optimization, algorithms to make sure that our grid is being powered effectively, our homes are receiving the power it needs to, and all that technology again is there today. So, you know, we're bringing that forward. We're bringing it to an energy retailer and giving them full control of these rooftop solar and battery systems that they've never had before.
Right. So when you walk into an energy retailer and actually tell them about NRN, how are you being received? Are they seeing you as a competition? Are they saying, oh, thank God, you know, I was waiting for you? I mean, what's the reception?
Yeah, at the beginning it was like, this is a little bit bizarre, but I think it's proof is always in the pudding. Thankfully, we Diamond Energy was fantastic. It is still very fantastic to work with, and it's always been a leader within this transition towards renewable. So I think now others are starting to see this and start to go, we need to think outside the box because we're just selling energy like everyone else. So yeah, it's been really well received, and we're excited to see what we can do in the next year.
So you've been going for a while.
Yeah.
Any customer success stories?
Yeah, quite a few. Like and when we first started to go through our proof of concept stages, we got a different range of customers. So from a customer that a homeowner, really challenging the cost of living. We then have renters that joined. We then have the $3 million house that came on board, and some businesses. Now, out of all those different backgrounds, everyone sees a different reason to why they joined us, but the success has been really, really good. You know, those who are going through a cost of living crisis, to save $800 a year is fantastic. Like, it's like, why wouldn't you do that? You're not using the space on your roof. You're increasing the value of your home. No brainer. But then again, those who, you know, the business that did join us, they're saving up towards $8,000 a year, and they spent nothing on the system. They are using 65% of renewable now within that, and they are very, very happy, I guess, partners of ours, and we're looking forward to getting more and more businesses on board as well.
Not only do I save on my electricity bill, but if NRN rolls out 1,000 systems or 10,000 systems in a particular region, then you're also creating extra stability to the grid. Right. So would that also mean that maybe future electricity price rises will be a bit less because there's actually less need for grid expansions?
Yeah. Look, we would love to think that would be the way forward.
But you've got to be really big by then.
We have to be really big, and I think the networks are looking at this. Most networks now have a future energy team who are exploring what different options are there instead of just spending more money on upgrades and upgrades and upgrades. I don't think it's going to. It won't reduce the cost because the money's already been spent on the current infrastructure. But hopefully, we would like to think that we could save money down the line because you don't need to buy the required infrastructure.
Right. Wow. Are there some specific improvements that you have as samples where people have been able to put extra infrastructure in or anything like that because of the involvement with NRN? Little hint, I'm thinking about the MTA and their public charger and stuff like that. So have you kind of had customers where because of them going with NRN, there was actually a wider benefit to the wider community?
Yeah, definitely. So as part of one of our commercial customers was the Motor Traders Association, and being within the automobile industry, there is a future where the automobile industry is now collaborating with the energy industry because of the adoption of electric cars. So we installed a very large solar system, large battery, but we also actually installed a public EV charging station to charge cars from the solar system. You know, and I think this was a trial to understand, will a energy retailer be comfortable licensing a system like this from us, and an on charging cost then to the users? And it's been a hyper success. We're seeing above 12 to 15 charges a day on that site, and the public are just using it. It's powered. There's a solar system that's on top. Depending on the time of day they're using it, they're charging the car. It could be powered by solar,
or out of the battery if it's after hours.
Correct. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
There is still a grid demand on site there, but I think there are different ways that we're looking now at how are we further looking beyond just a solar and a battery system. And I think this is going to really align with our solar retailer partners, because that's more work that they're able to create per customer that they get on board.
So if for example, now, if I'm a car yard, there's obviously a lot of electric cars coming down the track that I haven't really been thought even how to incorporate all that, but I will need possibly electric charging stations on my lot. So if it worked for the Motor Trader Association, it could work for a lot of car yards, couldn't it? Is that one of your target markets?
It's not a target. I think we look at the market as it's everyone. We need to democratize. So yes, they would be more favorable of getting a EV charging station than a different type of business. But I think it's just further options that we want to include within our offering to end users.
But the MTA model, was the charging station also supplied without cost?
That's correct. There was no cost.
So if I be a car yard, I suddenly get my solar system, I get a battery, I get my EV charger, and I'm not out of pocket. And do I then make money out of the EV charger that I charge my customers to charge, or is that a complementary thing at the MTA at the moment?
No, look, it's a complementary component, but what they do get is cheaper bills. So we're seeing savings on that site beyond $8,000 a year. So they're just having access to cheaper rates. And I guess the other side of the benefit is that the public that are charging their car at that station, it makes money for the energy retailer. So the energy retailer can then reduce their cost to the MTA or the customer to provide them cheaper power. So you're just diversifying your income streams to benefit the end user.
So what are your future plans?
Future plans, it's about building out this network as large. So we are on the road right now speaking to many solar retailers across the country. That's all about national coverage to make sure that we have a workforce on the ground and helping their business. Building more energy plans, so giving more customers more choice. And then, really growing out the customer base here in Australia. Now, I talk about that's just Australia, but outside of here, there is a big issue in every country. Every country is going through this transition. We're just far ahead of everyone else. I really believe we are. And we're facing challenges that countries are 4 or 5 years away from seeing. So I think we are going to position ourselves and set up to enter into these countries when they start to see the issues that we're facing today.
So you're saying we're ahead because Australia has already got the 3.5 million solar systems, which is a much higher penetration of solar compared to many other countries, is it?
Yeah.
And so we're learning out of that curve that we then can put that learning to other countries.
Correct. There's probably, I could count on one hand, the amount of countries that have experienced negative market events. Europe faced it for the first time a year or two ago, and I think it's just going to get worse and worse as the
As
years go
solar
on.
grows and
Correct.
wind, right. So how are you preparing yourself and evolving to face those challenges and those opportunities going forward?
It's every day I talk to the team about is what we're doing today scalable, and it's not. We don't just want to help one or two people or 100 people or even 1,000 people. We are looking beyond hundreds of thousands of homes globally. So what are we today? We're preparing to make sure our systems, our legal framework, our financing, everything is scalable. So it's a copy and paste to hit into another country. We know what the trigger points are. We've learned this. This model works really well in Australia's climate today. It didn't work 3 or 4 years ago, and we've hit that crossover point. So we'll be observing the other countries and understanding when they start to cross over. But it's all about scale because we want to make as much impact as we possibly can.
Okay. So there's a big future.
There's a big future. It's a lot to do. Yeah, it's a very big vision. I think it's an attractive proposition. As you rightly said, it's not every day we have the opportunity to help everyone in our supply chain. Everyone in our stakeholder circle wins, and I think this is a very replicable business model outside of Australia.
What's your biggest hurdle in selling such a great proposal?
It sounds too good to be true. And it's proving it now that people are saving this much money, that they are getting the benefits. We always have this sense of we must own. I think that's a hurdle too. Like, do you really need to own this? Do you need to pay for your electricity up front for the next 10 years? No, not really. So it's. I think there's a lot of education, a lot of trust building. The solar industry has not got the best reputation, but it works.
So your biggest enemy is the cynic in people who have heard other people being burned by solar,
100%.
and then just wondering when you come in with a great offer, they're looking for that hook.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so that and that's why we feel a great opportunity is working with the local solar retailer who is known in your area. They did your cousin's home and your parents' home or so forth. Like they can be educated about our product, and they can first-handedly go and promote this within their network. We got one solar retail partner that basically brought his whole family on board, and I think that's really a significant amount of trust to say they've done their due diligence. They understand the model because when we first spoke to these partners, they were like, "Oh, it sounds too good to be true too." But it's very clear where the benefits are, and
But look, I mean, now to put a reality check on it, you're not promising bill-free moments for the rest of your life. You're just producing a reduced bill, and people still have to pay something for it.
100%.
So there's really just in the middle of cost of living crisis, there's a specific tangible benefit I can get.
Yeah.
But it's not a free-for-all. There's still a payment to be made. The bills still have to be paid, but you do get quite clear benefits.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think we miss that when we go to, you buy a solar and battery system for $20,000 and you have a very small bill. So you should, because you just spent $20,000. You paid energy for the future to reduce your bill. Here, there's not that. There's just cheaper bill and money in your pocket.
So if you don't have 20 grand but still want a cheaper electricity bill, yours is the option.
Correct.
From an NRN philosophy, how would you describe the whole company?
It's about fairness. I think we have a role to play. We have our garden to stay in, but we need all of our neighbours to work with us. And I'm saying this is going. There are different stakeholders within our business model to make this work. There is the investor, there is the solar retailer, there's the energy retailer, and the customer. We can't do everything. We work with other companies and help their business become successful with us. I think collaborative working with other companies is a really strong ethos of us. Fairness is 100% like number one as well. It's everyone has to have an equal benefit across the supply chain, and it's also just it's around the democratization. It's changing the way that that rooftop solar has been viewed as a middle class or a rich, available for the rich, essentially.
You don't have a house, you can't benefit from solar.
Correct.
You're breaking that mold.
We are.
Do you have had any solar retailer background and experience?
As I stepped into the solar industry, I had to learn. It was about solving the end customer's problem, was how do we remove the cost barriers of them accessing it. We had to learn firsthand about the customer first. So we set up a solar retailer. We launched in Victoria as part of the Victoria Homes program, and it was very successful. We installed over 600 homes within the first year, but that helped then fund this venture. And I took a lot of learnings around. We just felt like we were chasing the next sale to pay a salary. How do we make a sustainable business through the solar sector? And that's exactly what went away and done.
So you got your hands dirty in the industry, you understood all the aspects, and then you kind of remodeled it to find something that creates winner, winner, winner.
And we were very close to becoming an energy retailer ourselves and doing that aspect. And it was a very clear guide to say, no, it's we don't need to take it all on. Like, we need to work with what's there today and partner rather than be.
The whole of Australia is at the moment hearing that we have to get out of gas and the homes have to be more electrified and all of that. And I think to a lot of people, it's kind of all a little bit much. Can you explain all what the plan is and what the government wants us to do?
Yeah, definitely. I think Victoria definitely taken a first big lead in this. No new homes are allowed to have gas connection. I think that's a huge step in the right direction about electrification. How we start taking gas away is going to be interesting over the next decade. It's definitely part of the plan as we decarbonize. But now we need to think about everything in a home relies on electricity. So the importance of stability in our grid, stability in our networks is becoming more and more critical. And again, it's not just the internal, like my oven being powered by gas. It will be electric, but it's the cars too. It's everything is on that electrification journey. So the energy sector needs to do a lot to be involved in this transition too.
But if the electricity is from a coal-fired power station, then I haven't really improved the situation at all.
No, correct, and that's the role now is changing the fuel mix of generation. We're doing well. There's more that could be done for sure, but it's not. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't turn off a coal-fired power station tomorrow, and that's the end of it. It's called a transition for a reason.
Now, let's say I'm ready. You've sold me. I wanted a cheap electricity bill. It didn't take you too much to convince me that was a good idea. But what are the key terms in the contract? You know, the little fine print that I might not like. Are there any specifics that really you want to point out?
Look, you are in an agreement with us for a 10-year period. There's no cost for that 10-year period. It's all paid by the energy sector. The ask that we do have is that you use our our energy retailer partners. I'm going to repeat that one again.
Yeah, okay. Let's say you've convinced me to go with NRN. I do like a cheap electricity bill. You didn't have to twist my arm to go with that. But in your contract, are there the kind of clauses that I really should be aware of?
Yeah, look, every contract has different types of clauses, but we're very open and transparent of making sure it's very clear. The agreement is a 10-year agreement to be able to participate in our network and have the system installed. There is no cost to that agreement, essentially because being paid by our energy retailers. The ask is that you do use our energy retailers because they'll pay for that system. The biggest benefit for you, though, is that 10-year agreement is a maintenance agreement, and we will make sure that the system that we install in your home is being looked after and managed. You can buy at any time. I think that having that flexibility is really key. It gets cheaper month on month from day one. You can transfer the agreement to the new owners.
In case you sell your house?
In case you sell your house, correct. And then you do have a level of responsibility. You need to make sure that you're not touching the system or playing around with it, or just the normal terms that could actually cause a hazard with the system. It is a battery, it is a solar, is power, and then the other factor within the agreement, I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. Don't play with it. But obviously, because you have to recoup the money that you spend on the first place for the system, you do need a certain period, like 10 years as security to be able to recoup your funds. If somebody decides to take your free system, go for a ride, and 2 years later turn it back, at that point in time, you wouldn't have returned your money. So I get it why you would have to have a longer contract period. Makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And again, it doesn't cost you anything. It's being paid by your energy retailer, which I think that's the huge benefit here is, sure, you have an agreement in place to look after the system, but it's not paid by you.
If for whatever reason one day I want to stop using NRN, what does the contract say about that?
Yeah, you can buy out the system. There's just as you would today, you go to market. It's all market cost from day one, and then every month it gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. We can facilitate that for you. We can make that transition very easy. And again, it just adds value to your home.
So I could theoretically start off not buying the system, have the solar, have the cheaper bill, and then one day, for whatever reason, I decide I want to give it a hug and own it. You will be selling it to me.
That's correct.
Not at an inflation price.
No, your price would normally be.
Okay, fair enough. Good. And the day it gets onto my roof, who owns the system and who is responsible for it?
So NRN will own that system, and we are responsible for making sure it's working. We don't get paid by the energy retailer if your system is not working. There is a maintenance contract that's set with your local solar installer to make sure it's working. But fundamentally, NRN will own it until the time that if you want to own it, you can buy it from us. It's not a problem.
In regards to NRN, how long have you been operational and what are some of the big achievements?
No, we've been around for 4 years ago. We stepped into the industry, started to try and build out the concept, the model of removing the cost barriers. Look, the biggest achievement has been identifying that a customer saves money and it can commercially work for an energy retailer. We can all sit around spreadsheets and work out numbers, but nothing's better than seeing cash in and cash out. And that for us has been one of our biggest achievements.
With customers who've actually had real savings on their electricity bill, wouldn't they be shouting it off to the rooftop to their friends and all that? Do you have a referral program?
Yeah, we do. And we actually pay them for that too. We pay around $200 for every customer that does refer. And it's what we have natural growth through that at the moment because they are seeing the benefits and the savings. So they do tell their friends, family members, neighbors.
When the system gets installed, am I up for any payment also?
There's literally no cost. There's no financing. There's no cost.
Is there a cost to the contract?
No cost to the contract at all.
Sometimes you do a home loan and there are all these little extra nitty-gritty fees that they drag you out of your nose. Have you been very creative in that field?
Yeah, no, we haven't at all. It goes back to the core of we don't believe that people should be paying money for these systems. It should be given to us. I didn't have to pay for a power station. Why do I need to pay for having renewable?
What's involved in the installation? How quickly does it take?
Look, it takes, let's say, a day for a standard installation. It's very, very clean. We work with very good solar retailers and installers. Generally, they're all in-house installers too, so there's a lot of pride in their work quality. They do have to submit an inspection form, and we inspect and audit that as well ourselves. So we have another layer for the quality assurance. It's not a lot of time. There is once it's installed, we then need to get the metering configured. That can take 2 or 3 weeks, and then you're onto the new plan. So there are systems in place or becoming in place where that could be a lot more streamlined. But when you're working with many different stakeholders, it can get quite complex. But it's pretty quick and easy.
But basically my savings start from the time the meter is installed.
That's correct. Yeah.
Let's say I've got a really small electricity bill.
Yeah.
And I want to get even smaller, but overall my consumption is maybe so low that it doesn't even justify a solar and a battery system. Do you sometimes have to say to people, look, we need a certain amount of electricity used, otherwise the whole system doesn't work?
Yeah, look, we do. At this point in time, we have a minimum. So it's around 15 kilowatt hours a day, which would be a standard home with 2 bedrooms would use that much. And look, the real reason is you rightly said, it's about using the energy that is generated from your system. And if you're not using power, then it kind of doesn't really work. Now, down the line, there is an opportunity that even if you did have a very small bill, that those systems can be installed in your home because they can integrate into a larger virtual power plant. But that will be in the years to come.
And so when I get billed, is NRN send me the electricity bill, or is it still my energy retailer who's billing me?
No, so you don't get a bill from NRN at all. You get billed by the energy retailer, just like your energy bills that you have today. Exactly the same, just cheaper, which is great. NRN is really there to help if there's any problems. Like if your system's not working or you have other questions or your concerns, you can contact us directly. If not, you've got your solar retailer that helped you install, and they're local to your home as well.
And so let's say if I'm in a certain area, let's make it Sydney or Melbourne, and I'm consider going with you,
Yeah.
do I then get from different energy retailer their offers of what I would save,
Yep.
and so I can choose what would suit me better? Is that how it works?
That's correct. Yeah. If you spoke to one of our solar retailers, they'll give you some options about what energy retailer can offer you different prices, and they'll walk through with you about how all that works. So yes, you'll be able to then compare and which is the best option for you.
All right. I'm sorry for the question, but what would happen to my system and my whole setup if you guys go out of business?
Yeah, really good question. Look, we've isolated everything in that worst case scenario. So your system is owned by one of our companies, and if our operating company wasn't there tomorrow because of a certain reason, hopefully that never happens, your system is protected because that is then outlined with the investor who funded that system. Because there is a maintenance agreement with a third party, being a solar retailer, your system is still able to keep working and being used. It just means that NRN, the operating business of it, just may not be there. But look, we've set everything out to say if that does happen, you don't need to worry. Your system's not going to be removed from your home. It's business as usual for you, and you're just going to keep saving money.
Okay. Now, are you able to get all these benefits because you're buying your solar and your battery very cheap and you use the cheapest battery and the cheapest solar system?
No, not at all. Not at all. So we use good quality systems. It is really important. If you buy cheap systems, you end up spending more money down the line. So good quality systems is key. But also we also pay us the solar retailer a really good margin and a good when I say margin, a good fee for doing a very good installation on your home. So yeah, it's not about how do we pay the cheapest possible, because I just don't think that's a ethical way or a sustainable way of running a business.
Because basically, the more electricity that system generates, in some way, the battery, etc., in some way for your business model, the better it is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, if it's down, it's not good at all. We don't get paid. So yeah, we've had to put some. We've really taken the choice of quality is key in the manufacturers and products, but also from the installation component. And we have a very robust QA, so quality assurance process, once the site has been installed as well.
Is there a monitoring system that comes with the system so I can actually see what I'm using?
Yeah, definitely there is. Yeah, so every technology we install, generally the battery or the inverter, has a portal for you to track the generation and the usage from the system, which is it's really good. Like it kind of helps you with when you want to use power or not. But you're 100% spot on because you haven't invested in the system and it's managed by the energy retailer. There's a little bit less, really reliance on you monitoring it because we're doing that day to day for you anyway. But if it's for your own your own
Satisfaction?
yeah, that's it. So then you can monitor it 100%.
I think in Australia overall, out of the 3.5 million systems, what people forget, there's 1.5 million that are really small, older style system where people look at replacing them. So if I got a small system, what are my options to upgrade to an NRN system?
Yeah, we have a lot of systems being removed at this point, and it is the smaller systems, the 1 or 2 kilowatt systems. It basically will remove the system. Let's upgrade it to the latest technology. There's no reason to keep it there on site. It's at the end of the day, you're not seeing a lot of benefit from that system. You might be on a premium feed-in tariff from a while ago. They're just about to run out in certain states. So I think it's a really good time then to start looking and researching about what's that next step for you. But yeah, we have a lot of people that come our direction. They want to remove their 6 or 7 or 8 panels on their roof and get a brand new system installed with a battery.
You've come in today. I mean, normally when we have people coming for the podcast, they sell us a product. There's an advantage, there's a disadvantage. I haven't really been able to find the disadvantage in your model.
Good. Means we did our job right.
So, I mean, you get a cheaper electricity bill.
Yeah.
You got the bragging right of a solar and battery system.
Yeah.
You can also monitor what you're doing, so you can kind of influence the behavior. You're helping to stabilize the electricity grid. And all in the middle of a cost of living crisis where you've been looking for something to reduce your costs. I think you're going to be very busy.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think we've set a really good foundation to how we can now grow. We haven't ran at it. We've done it very slowly and learning and testing, but we're now ready to go. So yeah,
You built the foundations.
we've got the foundations. They're ready. Yeah, let's
Okay,
build
well,
the house.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Please support the channel by liking the video, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, and check out all our other videos. Want more energy answered? Visit yourenergyanswers.com for quality energy products, tools and calculators, and find your quality local installers. You're still here? I'll see you next time. Bye.